Good afternoon, gentlemen. So today our topic will be distribution.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, today's topic will be distribution. That is 2.1, 3.9. Okay, so before we go to that chapter, distribution, last week I asked you a few questions, revision questions. We'll just go through this question answers, and then after that we'll start with a new topic. So the revision questions from 3.7, which was like a few 11 questions which I just put up revisions. Like what is the significance of group setting of governor, why it is called integral governor. We'll just see these slides, few of the answers. So first of all, okay, so let's see these answers for these questions. The first was the, like, first of all, before we go to that, we know why the group is necessary. You see that group, when running in parallel, the group setting is, like, actually can observe the effect of group when PMS is manual. As you load the generator, you can see the speed drops. That is the group. So a system without group, the load increase will cause the engine to slow down. So due to the combined properties of inertia and power lag, the engine speed will continue to increase beyond the original speed settings, causing an overshoot in speed. So the governor will again try to respond to decrease in speed to correct the overshoot. It will overcorrect the speed in other direction, causing an undershoot. So basically this will create an instability, or the engine can trip. So that is why we need a droop. Okay. So second question is, why this one is called integral governor? What is the significance of droop? You see, to observe the effect of droop, PMS has to be put in manual. As you load the generator, and you can see when the load is increases, the speed drops. So why the speed is dropping? Why the generator speed decreases with increase in load? Okay. So if you load on the power system is increased, the load current will increase. Because when the load on the power system increases, the load current increases, which will. So this increase in armature current will result in increase in magnetic field on the armature, and the rotor located in the armature field will experience a more attractive force. Means it will try to pull the rotor more. So which will reduce the speed of the rotor, and which in turn reduces the voltage. So as the speed reduces, the frequency in the system also reduces. This reduction in the rotor speed is sensed by the turbine governor. And to keep the speed and frequency constant, governor valve will open and turbine output power is increased to restore the generator voltage and frequency. This what it says that when you load the generator, why the speed is decreasing. Okay. Why the generator speed decreases with increase in load. Now let's come back to this question. What is the significance of droop setting? You see, speed droop is a governor function. Governor function means which will try to reduce the governor speed as the fuel position, or the fuel, as the fuel position means the load increases. So all the engine controls use the principle of droop to provide stable operations. So without some form of droop, the engine speed regulation is always unstable. So you need to have a droop, otherwise the speed regulation is not possible. So a load increase means the engine has to slow down. Now the droop is a straight line function, means a certain speed reference for every fuel positions. Okay, the droop governor will lower the speed reference from 3 to 5% of the reference speed over the full range of the governor output. So thus a 3% droop governor with a reference speed of 1854 at no fuel, means no load, would have a reference speed of 1800. That means it will have a 3% droop. So what is happening is that the droop link, okay, whenever the load increases, the reference speed has to be reduced. This reduction in the reference speed is done by the droop feedback link. So the droop link reduces the settings as the load increases. The setting from outside remains at 60 Hertz, means what you set is 60 Hertz. But internally the droop link, it is a feedback coming from the output shaft which will reduce the settings. That is why the speed is dropping. So here these governors are integral governor. Integral governor will not have any offset. Offset is only with the proportional governor. So these are integral governor which will not have any offset. That is why this reference speed is reduced as the load increases. So there is no error in this. There is no steady state error because these are integral governor. So it is not the governor is not trying to maintain 60 Hertz. It is not the governor is trying to maintain 60, but still speed is dropping. The speed is dropped because of the droop link, which will try to reduce the reference speed. So that is why it is called an integral governor. Integral governor means there is no offset. You must have studied in the control system. A proportional control system has got an offset. Offset means it's a steady state error. But whereas in integral control, there is no steady state error. There is no offset. So all these governors, like hydraulic governors, they are integral governor. So there will not be any offset. So this is the why it is called integral governor, because there is no offset. So what is a speed droop? It is a governor function which reduces the reference speed. Who is reducing the reference speed? The speed droop lever. You see in this, you can see this droop lever here. So the droop lever will try to reduce the reference speed settings, and there will be no offset. So droop link changes the speed force for a particular speed settings if the load increases. Okay, so this is the answer for this question. So this is, you must understand why the load, when you increase the load, why the speed reduces. This is because of this. The load current increases. When the load current increases, armature current will increase. So there is too much of magnetic flux. The armature also produces a magnetic flux, a magnetic effect, which will try to pull the rotor back. And when the rotor is pulled back, the prime mover speed is dropped. And that is sensed by the governor and it gives more fuel. Okay, this is why generator speed increases with increase in the load. This droop settings, the droop speed is a drop in speed. Droop means it's a drop in speed with the load. It's a characteristic of a governor or speed regulator of the engine. So when used as a standalone generator, this will determine the drop in frequency. So here you can see 2 to 4% of the full load. When used in conjunction with other generators, then generator sets are, it will share the load based on the droop characteristic. If they are identical, they will share the load equally. That means two generators are running, then they should have the same droop. So it will share the kilowatt load equally. If you are running single generator, you can run in asynchronous mode. You see the asynchronous mode. Asynchronous mode means there is no droop. So here you can run only one generator in asynchronous mode. It's a zero droop. So here, if you see here, for parallel running, you need identical frequency here. So if you look at this, the frequency is everywhere identical. So it can run, the load sharing can be anywhere. So it is an unstable load sharing. Look at this asynchronous one. There is no droop. Droop means there is no drop in frequency. So for parallel running, there should be an identical frequency. But here you can see the frequency is identical everywhere. So it can run, it can, so the load sharing can be anywhere. So it will be an unstable load sharing. So asynchronous means there is no droop settings and the frequency can be anywhere, everywhere frequency is identical. So it will be unstable if you use asynchronous. Asynchronous means there is no droop. You can see the second one. This is having a droop. So this is with droop. This is without droop. Here there's a question. Can you run a parallel, can you parallel an emergency generator with auxiliary generator? You see the one which is having a less droop will take more share of the load. Okay. So if you have two generators, let's say you have a large generator and a small generator, or an emergency generator and auxiliary generator. So you see, for running parallel, the voltage, frequency, phase angle, these all parameters should be same, irrespective of the kilowatt. So if you have two generators, like technically there is no restriction in running emergency generator and auxiliary generators, and some of the ship, they have this provision of paralleling emergency generator with auxiliary generator. But in this case, the emergency generator should be kept at higher droop so that it prevents from the overloading. And the auxiliary generator should have the lesser droop, so that will take more load. Higher droop, lesser load. Higher droop means it will take less load. And if you make it lesser droop, it will take more load. So the small generator should have more droop, and the large generator should have higher droop. And second thing is that what is the effect of low droop and high droop? If you set the droop so low, the system becomes unstable. And if you set the droop very high, the system becomes sluggish. Okay, hope this is clear. So basically for paralleling, only your voltage, frequency, phase angle, phase secant, these four parameters should be same. Kilowatt doesn't make difference here. So making a droop, higher droop, it can share less load. You make the lesser droop, it will take more load. Hope these things are clear. When the generator prime mover RPM increases, what is happening on the voltage and frequency? What is the effect on voltage and frequency? You see, the actual voltage induced in the conductor is determined by the number of lines of flux cut per unit of time. So the two key factors affect the magnitude of the voltage is the speed at which the conductor moves through the fixed magnetic field and the strength of the magnetic field. That will determine the output voltage. So speed is a function of the rotational speed of the generator or engine. As the speed of the engine generator increases, the voltage produced also increases. Okay. Megahertz testing, yes. Suffice. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to ask a question about this drop setting, what you said about the emergency generator and the main generator. When you say the emergency generator should have more drop, that means we have to adjust the drop, or it is built like that?
You see, nowadays some of the ship has got this synchronizing facility. It is built inbuilt, it is adjusted. Because you see, some of the ships, you can't synchronize it, because when you take the emergency generator on offload time, if you don't want to make a blackout, you can still synchronize it. You don't have to manually set this. It is already set. You understood? We don't make the settings on the emergency generator drop. But there is technically, there is, if you ask like, can you take an emergency generator in parallel with auxiliary generator? Yes. By changing the drop settings, you can do it. Because the kilowatt doesn't make any difference to the parallel loading. It's only the voltage, frequency, and phase sequence and phase angle. This should be same. So like now also, when you take the emergency generator, suppose the power, there's a blackout. Emergency generator started on load. You have started the auxiliary generator. Now you want to take the emergency generator on offload. How do you take the emergency generator on offload without making a blackout? So you need to synchronize the emergency generator with the auxiliary engines. You have to synchronize it, then you have to take out the emergency generator offload. So there also we are doing a synchronizing. Hope is clear?
Okay, thank you. Yes.
This, what is the significance of phase angle on the generator synchronization? You see, when two systems to be parallel, each must have the following matching characteristic. That is, it should be, both should be three phase, and phase A and B, C are 120 degrees apart and may rotate ABC or ACB sequence. So frequency, the standard frequency is 60 Hertz. Frequencies of the two systems must be same for correct synchronization. That is there. And voltage, each system must be matched, must be configured for the same voltage. Now you look at this, this one, you see here, you can see the difference. Phase angle matching requires that waveforms rise and falls in together with no angle difference. Now here you see here in this, like ABC, here you can see ACB. This phase sequence is not correct. In this example, only phases are matched, which could cause voltage between the systems to reach twice their peak operating capacity. One system could dead short. And in this case, you can see here, it is A and B and C. So the sequence in which the voltage, the phase voltage reaches its peak, all generator must be same. So this phase sequence should be same. So this is the phase angle, it has to be in the same sequence. Explain the working of the AVR, significance of the AVR droop settings. You see on this AVR, if you open up this AVR inside, you will find this potentiometer. Here it is not shown here. There's a potentiometer is called AVR droop potentiometer, droop settings. So all the generators should have the same droop settings. AVR droop setting is only for the reactive power sharing. So reactive power sharing is done by the AVR, and the droop should be the same for all the generators. Same like governor droop, all should be same for equal load sharing. AVR droop should be same for reactive power sharing. So automatic voltage regulator is a solid state electronic device for automatically maintaining generator output voltage at set voltage under varying load operating temperature. So it is a part of generator excitation system. It controls the output by sensing the voltage from the generator terminals and comparing to a stable reference. The error signal is used to adjust the field current. Basically what the AVR is doing is varying the field current. So by increasing or decreasing the current flow to the stator exciter, which will lead to lower or higher voltage at the main stator terminals. This is the droop of the AVR. So this is called the droop CTs, droop current transformer here. So the current signal from the droop CT, this is the primary. The current signal from the droop CT winding is converted into a voltage. Why? Because this burden resistor is there. This is converting into voltage. That is why you have a burden resistor. So burden resistor, the voltage is then added vectorly to the AVR sensing voltage, and the AVR is strict to droop the voltage by adjusting the excitation levels of the levels accordingly in proportion to the levels of load current and power factor. So it is important to have the droop CT on the same phase and the same AVR droop setting for all parallel alternators. So this burden resistor is the one which is converting into voltage, and this is added vectorly, and whereby this droop adjustment is done. So there is explain the working of AVR, significance of AVR droop setting. Droop CT is used to maintain reactive power of the generator. So you have reactive power and the real power. Real power is done by the governor, reactive power is done by the AVR. So droop CTs are ordinary current transformers. Which is the droop CT? This one. This is the droop CT. So droop CTs are the ordinary current transformer, which is used only for AVR. AVR will control the reactive power of the generator with the help of droop CT. At the same time, power factor can be adjusted with the help of droop CT reference only. This adjustment is performed by adjusting excitation current of the generator. When you increase the excitation current, the generator, it will generate more reactive power. And when you decrease excitation current, generator produces less reactive power. Compensation, cross current compensation and droop CTs both are two different ways of sharing reactive power. Droop CT is also sharing reactive power, cross current compensation is also sharing reactive power. Okay. So when active power sharing between the generator sets during parallel operation is governed by the engine, the reactive power sharing is controlled by alternator's control system. There are various recognized load sharing methods in generator industry, such as asynchronous load sharing, cross current compensation, quadrature group load sharing. So these are the two methods of load sharing, droop CT and cross current compensation. Droop CT we have seen, this is the cross current compensation. Cross current means this, you see, the CT output is connected with the AVR of the other one. So another method of reactive load sharing is the cross current compensation. It is used for reactive load sharing between parallel generators. So the current transformers are interconnected. The output from here, it is interconnected to this. The secondary current of the first transformer must match with the other transformer secondary current. So load will be equal. So whenever there is a difference in this current, this will give more excitation because this is inside the AVR circuit. So the current flow through the burden resistor will be 0. This is the burden resistor. This burden resistor current will be 0 when both are sharing equal current. Whenever there is a difference, then this burden resistor output voltage will vary and it will give the correction inside the AVR. This is called cross current compensation. So one is a Droop CT method. Droop CT method is this, and this is the cross current compensation. These are the both reactive power sharing. You look at this, you see this, it looks like this. So which is the Droop CT? Droop CT is here, and this is the cross current compensation CTs. So this is two are called the cross current compensation. This is the Droop CTs. Explain how do you test the preferential trips on chip, okay? So this preferential trip, I already know, like it is a tripping of non-essential loads when the overload occurs on generator. So when generator is overloaded, the preferential trip relay get operated and an alarm to trip the selected non-essential loads. Why it is necessary? Because if the preferential trip is not installed, when the generator gets overloaded, overload trip get activated, resulting in total power failure. So it is better to maintain generator operating by disconnecting some of the non-essential loads. How it goes, you can see here, preferential trip get activated and operate at time delay, which will disconnect non-essential services in a specific order. It goes in like this: 5 seconds, air conditioner, ventilation; 10 seconds, refrigeration, cargo plan; 15 seconds, deck equipment. Now after 20 seconds, if the overload still exists, after tripping the non-essential services, then the overload trip gets activated. After 20 seconds, trip the whole ship circuit. So preferential trip is actually, it is tested by a current injection method. Normally you will find all this on the switchboard. It will be indicated with a different color, which are the machineries which will be tripped in preferential trips. So if you want to test the preferential trip on board, you have to take all other generators off standby, remove them from the standby, and then put only one generator on load, increase the load and see. It goes in this sequence: 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, the machinery should trip. As I told you, like air conditioning, refrigeration, ventilation, this should be tripped after 5 seconds overloading. So all these MCCBs of the air condition and ventilation MCCB has got a shunt trip, which is connected with the preferential trip. So whenever it gets the signal, it will trip these breakers. So refrigeration plant, 10 seconds, deck equipments. This synchronoscope, you see, synchronoscope measures and display the frequency difference and phase angle. So only when these two quantities are 0, it is safe to connect the two systems together. So connecting two unsynchronized AC power systems together is likely to cause high currents to flow, which will severely damage any equipment not protected by fuses or circuit breakers. So synchronoscope, you can see the diagram, it looks like this. The synchronoscope consists of a small motor with coils on 2 poles. Yes. After.
Yeah. How many percent of the generator load is normally preferential trip activate?
Preferential trip.
Yes.
Yeah, see this 110, it's around 110. Exact settings I'll let you know, because I think I did not forget to put the slide. It's 110, around 110%. And PMS you can change also this preferential tripping also you can change through the PMS, this percentage. So synchronoscope is like this. You can see here, this is the synchronoscope consists of a small motor with a, yes.
Okay, sir, I have one question on this preferential trip.
Yeah.
You said we will check the preferential trip by injecting current.
No.
How we make this?
We don't inject it. This is actually tested because see, when you're testing it on board ship, like it is tested by current injection. There's some testing method is there. Otherwise, you have to increase the load. You have to take standby generators offload, and you actually have to increase the load.
Okay.
Basically, what we are doing is we are putting more current. I mean to say, preferential test is by current injection means you are injecting more current. You start more machinery, more current. Understood? That means if you want to do
yes, I understand.
Yeah, you have to take all the generators on standby and start increasing the load only on one generator and see that sequence goes on. But how it is doing is more current. We are putting more current, more load. This was your question?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, you are not injecting by switchboard. You are not injecting some current. I mean to say you are putting more load basically. That is prefer the testing is that you're putting more load, means more current, you can say.
Okay, thank you.
So synchronoscope, it is actually two coils inside. So one side is the incoming generator, other one is the running the switchboard, and other from the running generator. So this synchronoscope consists of a small motor with coils, and the busbar circuit consists of an inductance and resistance connected in parallel. See, this may not be same everywhere, but it is some of the meters are like this. So the polarity of the poles will change alternately in north and south directions, which will changes in red and yellow phases of the incoming machines. You can see here it is connected only red and yellow phases. So the rotating field will react with the poles of the turning rotor either in clockwise or anti-clockwise directions. So synchronoscope indicates the difference in phase and the frequency of the alternator which has to be connected in parallel. It also indicates whether the incoming alternator is running slow or fast. Slow or fast. So the working of the synchronoscope depends upon difference in frequency of the alternator which has to be connected in parallel. So if there is no frequency difference, okay, the rotor and stator supply remains standstill. So if there is a difference in frequency, then the rotor speed will be more. So this is just a free rotating needle here, and this one is rotating, depends upon this frequency and the phase. Phase sequence cannot be checked with the synchronoscope. It's only the frequency and the phase. So I told you like we can close at 12 o'clock. That means its phase is exactly 0. Phase angle is 0. And if it is 6 o'clock means it's 180 degrees. Okay, these other two questions are: explain the various fault of the alternator and troubleshooting procedures. This you can write generally like what are the faults, what you observe it, like basically like insulation fault, as I told you, Megger test. Okay, so let me see where is Megger test. So what is the Megger test? There is the insulation test. We do two type of Megger test, winding insulation test on generators, basically like a stator winding test and the rotor winding test. Okay, so normally this insulation should be more than 1 megohms. That is rating. That is, if it is the rating, the voltage divided by 100 plus 1. Okay, that is the rotating machinery minimum insulations. That means if it is 440 volt motor means 440 divided by 1000 plus 1. So it goes like that. So you can calculate the minimum insulation. And stator winding insulations also you need to disconnect, better to disconnect the AVR first. Always whenever you do the Megger test, disconnect the AVR. And for rotor winding insulation test, you have to disconnect AVR. Also you have to short circuit the diodes. And the other fault is like major faults with the alternator. Let's go one by one. First, when you start the alternator, you don't find the voltage build up. Okay, so you don't find any voltage building up means probably it is lost the residual magnetism of the field. The pilot exciter field lost the residual magnetism. So you have to flash the field either from the switchboard. Some of the switchboard has the facility for flashing this. Otherwise, you have to give a DC supply to the field coils and flash it. So that is the first thing. When you start the generator, it should build up the voltage once it reaches around 200 RPM. That means first finish of the air run mode should start picking up the RPM and the voltage should start picking up. So this is called the flashing of the field. Okay. So one is not building up the voltage. Second thing, you found the voltage is less. What is building the voltage is very less. It cannot go up. That means you need to check the diodes. How do you check the diode? You need to only disconnect one end of it, and with the multimeter you can check forward and reverse bias and see whether it is open circuited or whether it is short circuited. So checking the diode, then could be some of the CTs on the voltage transformers are there, current transformers are there. These are the next part to check. Maybe some of them are gone bad or not. Other things like overheating alarms can come, as I told you, coil heatings, winding heating. So you can check the thermistors which are there. There are always a standby thermistor. You can easily change over into the standby one. For this, you need to open the cover and disconnect the thermistor, the temperature sensor from number 1 to the standby one. So that also you can do. This also one fault, common fault which comes up. You'll find the generator winding overheating alarms keep coming. So in this case, you have to check the thermistors and change over into the standby one. So Megger test, checking of the diodes, checking of the heaters, and checking of the CTs, checking of the potential transformers. AVR also can give problems. So these are the general problems which comes up. This I explained to you last time. How do you isolate a generator for maintenance on ships? So first thing is that you on the switchboard, you have to rack out the breaker first, take out the breaker off, and then you need to isolate the generator, shutting off the starting air, engaging the turning air to be engaged, starting air to be drained out, make the permit to work systems, and switch off the heater. Then you can carry out your maintenance. So these governors, we already discussed what are the type of governors, like centrifugal mechanical governor. Mechanical governor does not have a droop. Some of them has got a droop, but most of the mechanical governor does not have a droop settings. Hydraulic governors have droop, electronic governors, and governor built into engine control system. This is the camshaft plus electronically injected engines. You see in this here, AC instantaneous voltage. If two voltages differ in frequency, instantaneous voltage at the terminal will differ. So a circulating current will flow. You see here what you can make out in this. The RMS voltage is same. Both are having the same, but the phase difference is there. So this can cause circulating current. This is the phase difference. RMS voltages are same. Peak values are same. This reverse power, let's see this reverse power. You see the reverse power here. Now this generator, both this generator is running at 600 kilowatt, okay? And this one you can see here, number 2 generator has become minus 50 kilowatt. So number 1 speed setting is reduced till, now what we are doing is we are reducing the speed of number 1 generator till 0 kilowatt. So once it becomes 0 kilowatt, see you can see engine is consuming fuel to overcome the resistance now. If the speed setting is reduced further, speed is still maintained. Because in this case, the speed is still maintained. How? Because now this is taking the power from here, from the number 2 generator. That is why it is showing minus 50. So let's say total 100 kilowatt is the total power. 50 kilowatt is consumed because of the fuel, and minus 50 is taken from number 2 generator. So it is actually the generator is now motoring. That is why minus 50 kilowatt. So here you can see number one speed is reduced till kilowatt is equal to 0. Engine is still consuming power to overcome the resistance. Now if you reduce the speed setting more, speed is still maintained. Energy required for running for the other generator. Now if total friction, like if total kilowatt is 100 and 50 kilowatt is coming from the engine, minus 50 is from the other alternator. So alternator is drawing electric power and converting into mechanical power. So alternator number one, we can say it is motoring. Okay, so this we have finished with this previous. So let's go to the today's topic, and this is a distribution system. So this chapter is 2.3.9 distribution. Now what we are going to cover up in this topics to be covered is, we will see switchboard safeties. Okay, what are the switchboard safeties, and what are the switchboard survey, like when you do a switchboard survey, what are the parameters to be checked, and then you will see main switchboard. Main switchboard, what are the things to see, like a tie breaker, what is the function of a tie breaker, what is the layout of a main switchboard, what is a bus bar, and what are the various type of breakers. Okay, then you will see earth monitors, and how earth monitor is working, what are the IR values. Then you will see MCB, MCCBs, and various rating of MCCBs. Then next is the fuse, the type of fuses and the sizing of fuse, how you select a fuse, various type of fuses like NH fuses, HRC fuses, various type of fuses. Then we will see the difference between fuse and circuit breaker, what is the differences. Then we will see circuit breaker, what are the type, what are the ratings of circuit breaker. And then we will see ACB, how it is operating, what are the maintenance, and some circuit of ACBs. Okay, so let's see what are the switchboard safety devices. On the switchboard, what are the safety devices you will find. These all questions can come in the Viva questions. Okay, so that's why I put this. You may not find this in your handout. This. So like last time they asked, what are the switchboard safeties? So you can say overload, preferential trip, under voltage trip, over voltage trip. Okay, this all coming in details in the next topics. We will discuss these things. And reverse power relay, reverse current trip, fuses, ACBs, earth lamps, low frequency trip, meters, synchronoscope, synchronizing lamps, ebonite handrail and rubber footsteps, dead front type switchboard. So these are the things generally you'll find the switchboard safeties. Okay, what is mean this dead front type? Dead front type means all the panel front side, nothing is accessible to, you are not accessible to any like live systems. It is totally closed. Dead front, the front side is totally closed, sealed type. This one you see the handrail in front of the switchboard, like bad weather conditions and all, you can hold. It's an insulated handrail. So general safeties for switchboard means you should have like insulated hand gloves. This should be certified hand gloves. Okay, if it is 440 means it should be certified for 1000 volt. If it is 6.6 means should be certified at least 7000 volt. Dry boiler suit shoes with without metallic part, rubber pad in front of the switchboard. That's a foot mat, the mat in front of the switchboard. This also to be certified. And the gap between 0.6 m gap between the switchboard panel doors to be earthed. Interlocked handles for opening doors. This all should be interlocked. So these are the general safeties, and these are the safety devices. You can write, you can add more. If you have anything more in your mind, you can add it. So what are the switchboard safety? Yes, Abraham. Yes.
Yes, sir. So how is the synchronoscope mentioned under safety device?
Under steady conditions. You see, when the incoming frequency, the incoming switchboard frequency and this incoming generator frequency and the switchboard is same, then it will be in standstill conditions. So if it is running in clockwise means the incoming is going faster. If it is anti-clockwise means it is going slow. So the frequency, the phase should be, that's indicated by the synchronous scope. Frequency and the phase. Okay, you can just ask me this in the repetition class. You can ask me, then I'll go more elaborate on this.
Okay, okay.
So this dead front type means switchboard have no live parts on the front of the panel. Okay, each framework is rigidly constructed at steel angles for vibration resistance, to which door type panels or panels of 2.3 mm thick steels are hinged at one side, and the other side is latched for securing it. This is known as the dead front. Dead front means you cannot get a nothing live on the side, front side. It's all sealed. That is known as dead front. So these are the general safeties you need when you work on a switchboard. You must specify certified insulated gloves, certified floor mat. It is a floor mat, yeah, rubber mat. And these are the general safety devices which you find on the switchboard. Switchboard survey performed during the dry docking. Check the voltmeter, ammeter, wattmeter, or calibrations and calibrators and accuracies. Check all the trips: overcurrent, reverse power current, preferential trip. Synchronizing test. Switch inside each terminal to be checked for insulation resistance minimum 1 mega ohms. Tightness of loose joint connections, bus bar support, fuse holders. AVR and ACBs. Earth detection lamps and the insulation monitors. So these parts, these are the basic switchboard survey parts. So when you carry out a switchboard survey, what are the things to be checked? These are the things to be checked while carrying out the switchboard survey. This is done during the dry docking time, it is done. Or in case of some major failure of some engines, or suppose number one of the generator has failed, so there's some accident and all taking place, then the surveyor will again come for doing this survey. Class surveys, so they will do only for that particular one. You see on the switchboard, this is a switchboard, you can see 3 generators, okay? Number 3 generator is running and 1 and 2 is here. You see here, this is a breaker here. This breaker is called the tie breaker, okay? This is called the tie breaker. We'll see what is the function of this. Here you can see in this is from a handout, this is the tie breakers. So the advantage of this tie breaker is basically to isolate the switchboard into 2 sections. Suppose let's say number 4 generator, you have a problem and this are running. Number 4, like you want to do a maintenance on this part, let's say on the starboard side. So in this case, if you want to isolate this full switchboard, you can open this breaker and you can open this breaker. Or you open this is good enough. If you open this breaker. So tie breaker is basically to isolate 2 sections of the switchboard is called the tie breaker. Hope it is clear what is tie breaker. So tie breaker is to isolate. What is bus bar? Bus bar, you see, this is called the bus bar, this one. I think I have one photo on bus bar. Yeah, you can see here, this is the bus bar. You see, red, yellow, blue. This is the main bus bar. And from the main bus bar, it is coming to the circuit breakers. Okay. So inside the switchboard, sometime, like most of the time when you do the maintenance inside the switchboard, like you see, you want to check this bus bar connections are loose or some hot spots inside. In such times, you need to isolate the switchboard. So here you need to open the tie breaker here. Tie breaker is also a breaker. Tie breaker means it need not be a switch. It can be a breaker also. So you can open this, and some of them are manually disconnected type is also there, but this is a breaker here. This HM2, 2 HM1, HM1, HM2, these are the breakers. This is a typical layout of a high voltage switchboard. This is from a handout. So you can see here, this is the high voltage switchboard, and this is the low voltage switchboard, and this is the emergency generator switchboard. So emergency generator switchboard, you will find emergency generator breaker and short supply breaker. Short supply breaker is always interlocked with other breakers. That means this breaker you cannot close unless other breakers are open. So short supply breaker is here, emergency generator breaker is here. And 4 generators, this is a high voltage switchboard. These are the transformers. You see this one, these are transformers. What type of transformer is used here? This is a delta configuration. You see both of them are delta. Primary is also delta, secondary is also delta here. All of them are delta here. You see this also delta. Here you see here delta star. So primary is delta, secondary is delta and star. Okay, so this is about the bus bar. Bus bar will be like this. This is called bus bar. Okay, so what is bus bar? What is tiebreaker? Just remember this. Bus bar means it is connecting the whole power. Like this one is a bus bar. This you can call a full bus bar. This also you can call a bus bar. This also you can call a bus bar. This all bus bars. Now emergency generator also has a bus bar. This one. So here you cannot see there is no tiebreaker here. You see there is no tiebreaker. But here you have tiebreakers. So circuit breakers, supply breakers allow source to be started and secured while isolated from the network. Okay, bus tie breakers connect together buses together. So it connect the buses, bus tie breakers. Feeder breaker means connect buses to power distribution. So like if you have like steering gear motor. Steering gear motor from the main switchboard, it has to come to it will come from the main bus bar, it comes to a feeder breaker. Feeder breaker, it goes to your starter panel. Okay, so feeder breaker, bus tie breaker, supply breaker. You see, this is the earth monitor. Earth monitor, here you can see this is the earth monitor. This is the earth monitor indication meter here. This meter will show you how much is the insulation. And in additional, this will give an alarm. You see here this alarm contact. Whenever, see this coming two phases here. So whenever this will sense this, there is because this current flow is increased. This is called insulation unit. It's an electronic unit which will change over this relay and give an alarm. At the same time, you can see three lamps also connected here. So whenever any one of them has dropped, you'll find this is becoming dim. So this lamp should have an equal brilliancy. Whenever there is an earth fault, you'll find the lamp become dim. Okay, this is the earth test switch. When you want to simulate it, you make this switch on, and this is the ground. So you make it ground here, and you can see that this alarm, you can test it with this earth test switch. This is the earth resistance monitor. On board ship, you will find there is a regulator like this. You can set from 0.01 to 1.5 megaohms. This is the minimum value. And you can change this rotary switch. So this is only basically to stop the alarms. Like, you know, whenever the insulation drops to less than, let's say 1 megaohm, if you put here, it will give an alarm. If you put it here, 0.3 megaohms, it gives an alarm. So here you can see here, this is the alarm contact. This goes to the meter, which will show you how many megaohms it is. And this is from the main RST line, it is connected here. So this is a grounding resistance monitor. So normally, as I told you, the IR value for rotating machinery is rated voltage divided by 1000 plus 1. So if it is 440 volt motor, means 440 divided by 1000 plus 1. So it is 1.4. Okay. So normally for rated voltage below 1 kV, that is 1000 volt below, we call it as a low voltage. You can use a 500 volt mega. But if it is more than that, then you have to use higher voltage megas. So like 6,600 volt, you have to use 5000 volt mega. So below this, you can, below 1 kV means below 1000 volt, you can use 500 volt mega. We'll come to this MCCB and MCB. MCB is a miniature circuit breaker. MCCB is a molded circuit breakers. MCCBs are compact air circuit breaker fitted into the molded plastic case. You see the MCCB looks like this. This is MCCB. This type of breakers we are using on the feeder circuits. Okay. And this also you can see some of the MCCB has got these settings on this. There's the current settings and all this. We'll see what are these settings. So here the MCCBs are compact air circuit breakers. This also air circuit breakers fitted into the molded plastic case. They have lower normal current ratings and lower breaking capacity than the air circuit breaker. Air circuit breaker is a higher capacity breakers which is used on 440 volt ships and all. For generators, switchboards and all, we use ACBs. MCCBs are lower one which is used in the feeder circuits. You see here, this is the MCCB. You can see operating mechanisms, contacts, terminal conductors, and trip bar. So if an MCCB trips after a fault tripping, if trips after a fault, the following checks must be carried out. Open the front cover, open this front cover and inspect the breaker for damage. Check the insulation between the poles. Minimum insulation should be 5 megohms. Poles means this one, you see. This should be minimum 5 megohms. Check for correct operation. Is faulty, repair if it is faulty. Miniature circuit breakers. You see, this is the miniature circuit breaker. This is called miniature circuit breaker. Miniature circuit breakers are small circuit breakers designed to replace fuses in distribution board. They are available in our current ranges from 0.5 amps to 100 amps. And breaking capacity is up to about 3000 amps. So there are different classes like type B, type C, type D. Type B means 3 to 5 times the full load current. Type C 5 to 10 times. Type D is 10 to 20 times of the normal current. So miniature circuit breakers and MCCBs. Now if you look at these MCCBs, there are various settings on this. You can see here like rated frame current, rated insulation, rated working voltage, operating short circuit breaking capacity. All this will be set on this. You see here, this one, these are the settings on this. Rated frame current is a maximum current for which the MCCB is designed. That is a maximum current. Rated frame current is a maximum current. Rated current IN is the current value above which overload protection is stripped. Okay, rated current IN. Frame current INM. This is the maximum current for which it is designed. This is the current above which overload protection is stripped. Then insulation voltage is a maximum voltage MCCB can withstand. UE means continuous operation voltage for which MCCB is designed. Okay, UE means continuous working voltage. Operating short circuit breaking capacity is the highest fault current that MCCB can trip without being damaged. Operating short circuit breaking capacity current. You will find all these things like INM, IN, UA, UE like this. So this is the full form: rated voltage, rated insulation, rated current. These are the MCCB settings. Ultimate short circuit breaking capacity, it is written ICU, is the maximum possible value of the current that MCCB can clear. If the fault current exceeds this value, MCCB is unable to trip and another protection mechanism with a higher breaking capacity must operate. So where we use this MCCB, we use the MCCB in the feeder circuit breaker. That means from the main switchboard, let's say steering gear, main switchboard you will have feeder circuit for 440 volt. There you will find an MCCB like this. From this MCCB, this power supply will go to the steering gear starter. Okay, so this is the feeder circuit MCCB. And generally you will find when it is stripped, it will be in sender. It will not be coming down fully if it is stripped. So you need to reset it, push it down and pull it up. Then it will get resetted. So MCCB is generally used with the feeder circuit breakers. So like a boiler, boiler panel. So main switchboard will have feeder circuit breaker for boiler, IG plant, steering gear, air conditioning, all will find feeder circuit breaker like this, MCCBs. We don't use the MCB. MCB is very low capacity one. And this is used only in the, you'll find inside the distribution board and you'll find this types. Distribution box, like a lighting distribution box, you'll find like this. This is a 2-pole, this is a single pole, this is a 3-pole. 3-pole is only 1. This is 2, this is 3. Let's come to the fuse. You see, fuse is a non-adjustable direct acting single phase device. It responds to both magnitude and duration of the current flowing through it. Fuse may be time delayed or non-time delayed. Fuses may be current limiting or non-current limiting. So some of the fuses are current time delayed or non-time delayed. And it is used for both low and high voltages. So we'll see what are the various type of fuses, what it stands for. You see here it is called cartridge cylindrical fuse. Cartridge fuse is this type. Enclosed fuses. This is called diest fuses. Diest means is nozzle type. And this is HRC fuse. Let's see in details this. Diced fuse. Diced fuse is known as the bottle fuse. What is the diced fuse? This is the diced fuse. It's known as a bottle shape. It is called a bottle fuse. It is available in 5 sizes like 35 amps to 35 amps, 100 amps and 200 amps. So the fuse is held in place by a screw cap which is screwed into the fuse base. So this is having a, we are putting it inside and there's a screw cap is there. The cap is there and that will go and type this. So this is a cap is screw type. This is called the diced fuse. So it is called a bottle type, this bottle fuses. Another one is called the operating classes of fuse. Fuses are available in 3 different operating classes: slow blow, marking, fast blow, super fast blow. So slow blow means to protect cables and conductors from damage due to overload and short circuit. And the fuse you'll find sometime it is written like GL, GG and T and all. You see what is this GL and GG? It is a general fuse. And it mentioned like speed, how fast it operates. You see, it is a general purpose fuse. GG means general purpose, low voltage fuses up to 1000 volt. Motor protection, it will be written GM. High speed is written AR. Transformer protection is written TR. These are the things you will find. You see, look at this fuse here now. In this fuse, you will find small g and capital G. This is a general purpose fuse. It is the brand name, this is the speed, how fast it operates. And this indication is showing whether it is blown or not. If it is blown, it will be out. So this will show you the ampere rating 125 amps. Voltage is given here 500 volt. So you can use up to 500 volt, you can use this. This type of fuse has got a special puller for putting it in this. This is a special puller. You have to put it on this and pull it out. So the main categories of fuse selections are low voltage and medium voltage. So low voltage, general purpose fuse, motor protection, high speed and transformer protection. So important point for concerning fuses are, in the event of a fuse is blowing, the cause of the fault must be located. Suppose you find like in a starter, the control fuse has blown. So it is, you see, sometime once you replace it, it's okay. But if it is still blowing, means there is a short circuit inside somewhere. You have to investigate it. So in the event of fuse blowing, the cause of the fault must be located and repaired before the fusing is replaced. The fusing that is replaced must be of the current rating. Current should be same, voltage should be same. And replace all the 3 fuses in 3-phase circuit, even if one is found to be blown after fault current. This is called the NH fuse. NH fuse is known as the NH knife fuses. So here you can see here, this is knife blade fuses. These are one-time fuses, meaning once they are blown, they are finished. They must be replaced with a new fuse. Okay. NH fuses are constructed from a rectangular ceramic. This is a ceramic part enclosed by a cover plate that fuses a metallic blade. This is the metallic blade. And the fuse element side inside the casing is connected to the cover plate. The majority of NH fuse has a trip color indicator that is on top. You'll find a red indicator on top of this. So whenever this is blown, this will be out. This will be ejected out. It will be coming out. So each cover plate includes a metal extraction leg that enables quick removal. This is to remove the fuse. This one and this one is to remove. And this is a metal blade. HRC fuse means high rupturing fuse. This type of fuse contains a fuse wire inside. How it looks like this? It looks like this. See, this is the HRC fuse. Inside you have a fuse wire like this. High rupturing type fuse. It's called high rupturing type. This fuse contains a fuse wire. It carries the short circuit current safely for a given period. During this period, if the fault is removed, then it does not blow. Otherwise, it will melt and remove the circuit from the supply. So here in this case, you can understand that whenever there is a short circuit, this coil inside, the wire will start getting heated up and it blows, but not immediate. You can remove it if the fault is removed, then it will not blow up. Otherwise, it will melt and remove the circuit from the supply. The common material which is used to make HRC fuse is glass, but it is not always. It uses chemical compounds also. So this is called the HRC fuse. is called the legs, that is this one, and this has to be fixed with a screw here. There's two screws here. Here you can see how many amps it is, and inside the fuse element. So they put the fuse element, then some ceramic body, silica sand, and cap. Okay, this is called HRC fuse, high rupturing type fuses. In normal conditions, the current will flow through the fuse element to the circuit. In short circuit overload conditions, the fuse element will melt. This will melt and open the circuit. So we have seen HRC fuse and NH fuse. Okay. So in this you can see different type fuses. So we know what is diced fuse. This is cartridge fuses. Cartridge type fuses are this. These are the enclosed fuses. And the diced fuses are this. Non-diced HRC fuses. And this is the NH fuses. Okay. Just to know what are the type of fuses. What are the applications of fuses? Okay. You see another type of fuse is called the blade fuse. This you will find, this is called the blade fuse, like 2 amps, 3 amps blade fuse. So this is generally used with auto industries. They use this type of fuses. It's called the blade fuses. Okay. Now, what is the normal operating current of a circuit? How you decide what should be the fuse? Okay. For example, if the normal steady state current is calculated to be 10 amps. So you know, like 10 amps is the current flowing, then your fuse should be 10 amps multiplied by 135%. That means 13.5 amps. So if normal steady state current is calculated to be 10 amps, then 15 amps fuse rating should be selected. So 10 amps multiplied by 135% is 13.5. So the next, you will not get 13.5. That is why it says standard size is 15 amps. This is called basically sizing of the fuses. How do you calculate? See, approximately you cannot put a fuse. So you need to calculate it. If your current is 10 amps, steady state current, multiplied by 135%, then you see which is the next range, you know, which is falling higher than that. So 13.5 is the one. So higher rank is 15 amps. So you can put a 15 amps fuse. So in order to select the right ampere of the fuses, okay, you first need to know the full steady state current of the circuit at an ambient temperature of 25 degrees. Normally we say it is 25 degrees, and you must know what is the steady state current. And once the current is determined, then the fuse rating is selected as to be 135%. Hope it is clear. How do you select a fuse? Okay, maybe they can ask you in a viva like, how do you select a fuse? Suppose your current is, let's say 10 amps, you need to select a fuse. How do you select? That means you can say steady state current multiplied by 135%. So see, the next higher value is 15 amps. What is the operating voltage? You see the fuse, they specify current and operating voltage also. So the basic thumb rule is that voltage rating of the fuse must be always higher than the voltage rating of the circuit. Okay. What you understand is that the rating of the fuse voltage should be higher than the circuit voltage. If the circuit voltage is 24 volt, then the fuse voltage rating must be higher than the 24 volt. So it should be higher than the 24 volt. The fuse rating should be higher. So if you are using, let's say 220 volt, then it should be 250 volt at least. You should not put very high also, but it should be higher than the circuit voltage. So current, how do you calculate the current? How do you calculate the voltage? Fuse sizing. AC and DC fuse, when you think like, can we use AC fuse and DC fuse exchange? See, AC power, the current and voltage oscillates back and forth. It oscillates, it changes. The oscillation helps the fuse to clear quickly. In DC, on the other hand, it does not oscillate. So some fuses are designed only for the DC applications, like automotive, and some AC rated fuse may be used in DC applications. So this is the importance of it. DC fuse, some are specifically only for the DC applications. You can use only that fuse in that case. Ambient temperature operating, the thumb rule is that every 20 degree higher than or lower in temperature, the fuse should be derated higher than lower 10 to 15%. That means See, normal fuse rating is 1.5 amps. That means 135% of the full load current to be taken. But suppose the ambient temperature is 65 degrees. Then you have to derate it. So then it is 2 amps, 130% of the normal fuse ratings. You understood? So whenever it depends upon the ambient temperature also, the fuse should be derated, higher or lower, depend upon the ambient temperature. The difference between a fuse and a circuit breaker. Fuse works on the principle of electrical and thermal properties of the conducting materials. Is it? Fuse is like alloy, like material, it is blowing off and all. Whereas a circuit breaker works on the electromagnetism and switching principles. This is the main difference. Fuses once used cannot be reused again. Once it is blown, it is finished, but circuit breaker can be reused. So there is no need to change the circuit breaker after every fault takes place. A fuse is an electrical device made up of glass, porcelain, or plastic material containing a thin piece of wire. If any fault occurs in the system and the overcurrent flow through the circuit, the fuse will automatically melt and break the contact of the circuit, thus protecting the appliances from any damage. Circuit breaker also performs the same function as that of a fuse, but electromagnetism principle. The circuit breaker also protects appliances from getting damaged due to overcurrent. Difference between overcurrent, overload, and short circuits. Overcurrent means NEC, National Electrical Commission, defines overcurrent as any current in excess of the rated current of the equipment or ampacity of the conductor. An overcurrent is a result of overload, short circuit, arc, or ground fault. Overcurrent is a result of overcurrent, short circuit, ground fault. And overcurrent effects are like can cause a fire, conductor insulation damage, equipment damage. Overload means it's an operation of equipment in excess of the normal or full load rating, or a conductor in excess of the rated capacity that, when it persists a sufficient length of the time, would cause damage or dangerous overheating. Overload is not a short circuit or a ground or a arc fault. Short circuit means it's an overcurrent which greatly exceeds the normal full load current of the circuit. As the name infers, the short circuit leaves the normal current carrying path of a circuit and takes a shortcut around the load and back to the power source. So that is why it is called short circuit. Short circuit means it's take a short path to the power source. Okay, let's see the circuit breaker. ACB is known as the air circuit breakers. Okay, air circuit breaker is an electronic equipment. It is used for protection of electric circuits for short circuit or current, etc. ACB operates in the atmospheric pressure. Why it is called ACB, air circuit breaker? Because the contacts are operated in air. The ACB operates at atmospheric pressure. It's an atmospheric pressure. It is used in switching mechanisms and production of the electrical system. So what are the functions of ACB? It opens, closes circuit automatically or manually. Opens circuit automatically in fault conditions such as overcurrent, short circuit, earth fault, power frequency, reverse power, etc. And it dampens the arcing in case of overloading. See the circuit breakers, there are three types of circuit breakers, which generally you'll find on board ship like 440 volt ships, you'll find only ACBs, air circuit breakers. But ships with a high voltage and container ships and all, you'll find the vacuum circuit breakers and SF6 breakers. So air circuit breaker means it operates in air. The quenching means absorbing. The quenching media is in arc at atmospheric pressure. So the quenching media is an arc at atmospheric pressure. Thus, importance of ACB is still preferable choice to use ACB breaker up to 15 kV, 15,000 volt. So it is the limitations. So air circuit breaker means this air quenching media, that is the atmospheric pressure. That is why it is called air circuit breaker. And SF6 breaker means the current carrying contactors operates in hexasulfuric gas. The moving contact and the fixed contact. In any breaker, you'll find two contacts. One is called a moving contact and other is called a fixed contact. Okay. So you have one moving contact, one fixed contact. And fixed contact is always steady. Moving contact is moving. where it is moving. If it is moving in air, we call air circuit breaker. If it is moving inside an SF6 gas, we call SF6 circuit breaker. If it is moving in a vacuum, we call it is vacuum circuit breaker. The vacuum is around 10⁶. So it is inside the vacuum. Now we will see in details this SF6 and the vacuum circuit breaker in the high voltage classes, but briefly I will tell you what is the difference. SF6 breaker brains, this particular gas, this has got a very high electronegativity. Means it can absorb the free electrons very fast. Okay, SF6 breaker means the moving and fixed contact of a breaker are inside in a gas, hexasulfuride gas. And the arc which is there, what is an arc? The arc is actually electron flow, is it? It's a current flow. So this gas will absorb the electrons very fast and extinguish this arc. So that is why it is called SF6 gas. A current carrying contact operates in a sulfur hexafluoride gas. It is an excellent insulating property. What? The SF6 gas is having an excellent insulation property and electronegativity. Electronegativity means it can absorb free electrons. And negative ion is formed when the free electrons collide with SF6 gas molecule. It is absorbed by a gas molecule. Okay. Whereas in vacuum circuit breaker, see, high voltage ships are using SF6 breaker as well as vacuum circuit breaker. Now the difference between both, vacuum circuit breakers are little inferior than the SF6 breaker if you see the voltage wise. SF6 breakers are actually used with the connecting the generator onto the switchboard. So whenever you want to connect the generator to the switchboard, we are using SF6 breaker, and the vacuum circuit breakers are used for like interconnecting switchboards, like low voltage switchboards, starboard and port. You want to interconnect, we are using vacuum circuit breaker. It is little lower rated voltage. And the vacuum circuit breaker is a circuit in which vacuum is used to extinguish the arc. So you see vacuum, why? Because the electron flow in the vacuum is, electrons cannot flow, it will absorb, is it? It cannot move. In the vacuum, it cannot travel, these electrons. That is why we are using vacuum. Now you will ask, this vacuum has to be maintained always. If the vacuum is loses, then the purpose is failed. So you have to change the vacuum bottles. Okay, so vacuum is always around 10⁻⁻⁶. The vacuum has to be maintained. So to inside this vacuum, the moving and fixed contacts are there, and the vacuum has got a high dielectric property. It is high dielectric recovery character, excellent interruption, and can interrupt high frequency current, which results in the arc instabilities. I'll show you what is an electric arc. You can see in this. This is an electric arc. You see, this is an arc. You see this diagram? See, electric arc means an arc is a discharge of electric current crossing a gap between two contacts. Let's say these two are the contact and the arc is going. What is this arc? It's an electric current. What is current? It's a flow of electrons. So an arc extinguisher is a component of the circuit breaker that extinguishes an arc when the contacts are open. Circuit breaker must be designed to control them because arc cannot be prevented. Arcs are formed when contacts of a circuit breakers are open due to the larger than the normal current. So this is called arc. So we have seen these three types of circuit breakers: air circuit breaker, SF6 breaker, vacuum circuit breaker. The difference is that in the media which the contacts are operating, okay, air circuit breaker, fixed and moving contact of a breakers are moving in atmospheric pressure. SF6 is using SF6 gas. Vacuum circuit breaker is moving in the vacuum. This is the difference. And if you see a circuit breaker, what are the specifications you will find on a circuit breaker? Okay. So first thing is that it is capable of breaking the faulty section of the system. This is described as the breaking capacity of the circuit breaker. So one is the breaking capacity of the circuit breaker, and another is the capacity of the circuit breaker. It is capable of making the circuit in the greatest asymmetrical current in the current wave. We'll see what is asymmetrical current. And it must be capable of carrying fault safety for a short time, while other breaker is clearing the fault. This is the short time capacity of a circuit breaker. So three things. One is breaking capacity, one is the capacity, one is the short time capacity. In addition, there are poles. Number of poles are there. How many poles? rated voltage, rated current, rated frequency, operating voltage. This also you'll find on the circuit breaker. These are the specifications. So voltage rating means circuit breakers are rated for operating voltage like 440, 690, 3.3, 6.6, 12 kV and all. Current rating of the circuit breaker is based on the following: maximum permissible operating temperature of the circuit breakers, current carrying parts and contact, temperature rise of the current carrying parts, and ambient temperature. So these all things are the another specifications: rated voltage, rated current, rated frequency, operating duty. Rated voltage of a circuit breaker is the highest RMS voltage above the normal voltage for which circuit breaker is designed and is in the upper limits of operations. So the rated voltage is dissipated in kV RMS and use phase-to-phase voltage of the three-phase circuit. And second is the rated current. There was a question last time like what are the circuit breaker ratings? So you can write all these points: rated voltage, rated current, rated frequency, operation duty, and there is one more: breaking contact, making capacity, short circuit current. At least remember few of this. Just these headings at least you must write down: rated voltage, rated current, rated frequency, operating duty. So rated voltage, rated current means rated normal current. Rated frequency of the circuit breaker is the frequency at which it is designed to operate. Operating duty means operating duty of a breaker. It consists of prescribed number of times, number of unit operations at stated intervals. So this is how many times it's opening and closing. And the breaking contact, it is expressed as the highest number of short circuit current that breakers are capable of breaking under specific conditions. So it is expressed in Ka RMS at contact separation. Breaking capacities are divided into two types. That is symmetrical breaking capacity of a breaker and asymmetrical breaking capacity of a breaker. So the terms expressed are the highest number of short circuit current that the breakers are capable of breaking at specified conditions. Short circuit current of a breaker is the RMS value of the current that a breaker can carry in a fully closed conditions. How much without damage? It's a maximum short circuit current. This is symmetrical breaking current. It is the root mean square value of an AC component of a breaking current. That is called symmetrical breaking current. Asymmetrical breaking current, it's a mean square value of a total breaking current which includes both AC and DC components. Breaking current, it is the peak value of the maximum current loop including DC component in any pole during the first cycle of the current. So for fault rating of the circuit breaker, this is the fault rating. So symmetrical breaking current, making current, short time, rating current. This is what I told you, the arc. What is an arc? This is air circuit breaker, generator, basically a common air circuit breaker. Here you can see here a moving contact. This is a moving contact and there is a fixed contact. Main contacts are here, this one. So this is the arc contact. So this one is called the arc chute. Okay. So alternator breakers in low voltage ships are mostly air circuit breakers. That means still 440 volt ships you will find only air circuit breakers. Their contacts are open in air because this is open. This one is a cover which is on top. You can lift up this cover here and these are the contacts which is inside and this is in atmospheric pressure. So each containing one set of fixed contact and moving contact. These three units are linked together by an insulated bar for simultaneous operation. This avoids unbalance in loads and single phasings. Okay. So this arc chute, you see the arc is between these two contacts. These are the two contacts. You'll find the arc. Now this arc which is coming from here, this is arc chute. This will split this arc chute. Arc. So there are different ways you can reduce this arc. So here it is using the plates. These are the plates. So the arc which is coming out is been split and it absorbs the, extinguish the arc very faster. So this is the purpose of arc chute. Arc chute is to split the arc, and so the arc will get diminished fast. And this is an air circuit breaker because these contacts are in the atmospheric pressure. It is open to the air. This is the atmospheric pressure. That is why it is known as an air circuit breaker. So the main contacts designed to carry the full load current without overheating. They are usually made up of low resistance materials such as silver faced copper or copper with silver resistance. Interruption of the current flow during the opening of the contact results in arc between the contact faces. The arc is transferred to arcing contacts. Arcing contacts are fitted with springs that push them forward and make them before the contacts and break after the arc contacts are open. Arc contacts are protected, thus protect the main contacts from effects of arcing. Arcing contacts are made from silver, tungsten, or silver cadmium. Okay, I think today we will stop here. So next we will see this next class. You see, this arc chute is like this, you see. So this is a moving contact and this is a fixed contact. These are the arc split, arc splitter. So the arc chute, this whole thing is called the arc chute. Okay, arc chute is divided into a number of small compartments. These are the small compartments you can see here. And by using a metallic separation plates. So the metallic separation plates are arc splitter. You can say arc splitter means which will split the arc into different, split the arc. And each small components behave like a mini arc chute. Initial arc will be split into series of arcs. You can see it will be split into series of arcs. This will make all the arc voltages higher than the system voltage. They are preferable choice for low voltage applications. So inside an ACB, you have a moving contact, you have a fixed contact, you have an arc chute. This is called arc chute. This is called arc splitters. So the arc between these two is split into different small like this, and it extinguishes the arc very fast. This is called the arc chute. Okay. So this is one air circuit breaker you can see here. On this air circuit breakers, you will find here different, like this is a manual stop, manual on button, and this is the handle. So like this handle also you can using for the charging the springs. Charging spring means the spring is the one, it is a motorized spring which this breaker will get closed. Suppose you lost the power complete, there's a blackout, and if you try to push this, it will not operate. So in such conditions, you need to charge up this by using the handle. This 14 handle is a charging handle. You charge it this and you find this indications whether it is charged or not. This number 4, spring is charged or not. Once the spring is fully charged, then you can use these buttons. If the spring is discharged, because after you do 2 to 3, 4 times operation, the spring will get discharged. So then you cannot use these buttons. So to use these 2 buttons, this has to be the motor, the spring has to be charged, which is inside, which is opening and closing this mechanism. So that's why you use this handle for this. And here you can set all these various settings on this. Current settings, voltage settings, and trip settings, all you can set on this. So this is for manually switch on 1 and 2. And number 3 is for the main contact position indicators. It is open or closed indication. Number 4 is the spring charge indication. This is the handle indication. What else in this? That is. Okay, so the remaining this part we will see in the next class. So let's see. So this distribution side, what we have seen is like what are the various safety devices on switchboard. What is the function of like tie breaker? What is the function of what is a bus bar? What is the layout of this? And insulation monitor. What is MCCB? What is MCB? Then different type of circuit breaker and fuses. What is the difference? Different type of fuses. Then ACB. What is the rating of like MCCB rating? What is the rating of ACB? How do you size a fuse? How do you calculate a current? How you calculate a voltage by selecting a fuse? Okay. So I hope in this so these things also, I hope it is clear to you all this. Why it is called an integral governor? What is the function of feedback group lever? Because you see the speed. What is actually the speed? The set point speed to a governor is coming from two things. Okay, the final set point speed to the governor is coming from two things. One is coming from the speed knob. Speed knob means like on the switchboard you have this the lever like increase decrease frequency, that is connected with the motor. So one speed input is coming from here, one input is coming from this droop link settings, this settings, droop setting is here. So these are the two inputs which is coming to the governor. This you must understand. This all we already discussed. What is the function of speeder ring, flyweights, etc. and all, power piston, hydraulic, pilot valve, etc. So speed droop means it's a governor function which will reduce the governor reference speed as the fuel position increases. Okay. And all the engine control use the principle of droop to provide stable operations. Without some form of droop, engine speed regulation is unstable. A load increase would cause the engine to slow down. You understood when you increase the load, what happens, why the speed is reduced, that you must understand. And we know like in this, like both generator to share the load, it should have a common intersecting point. That means when you both should have a same, like droop should be same. If the droop is not same, the kW load sharing will be different. One generator will take more kW load, one will take less load. That means when the droop is same means the fuel what you are giving is exactly same to the both engines. That means the kW load is same both. So whenever you increase or decrease one side fuel means you are giving one engine more torque, one less torque. So that will take more load. That's why basically it is the what? Basically it's the fuel. So how much fuel you give, both you are giving the same fuel, and that is why the droop is very necessary, that both generators should have the same droop, a common intersecting point. That means the kW load will be shared equally. If the droop is different, then one will take more load, other will take less load. And the generator which is having a lesser droop will be taking large, and the one which is having more droop will take less load. That means higher droop means small load, lesser droop means more load. You must understand this concept. Okay, so gentlemen, we'll call it today F. I think today is finished. So tomorrow's class, tomorrow will be evening class. We will discuss only the question answers basically on the three-phase transformer. In the tutorial, some question answers are there. We will discuss in the tomorrow's evening class the tutorial question answers of the three-phase transformer. Hello? Okay?
Okay, sir.
Call it. And I could not send this slides today to you. I'll send it now, okay? I'll send you both slides, the additional slide as well as the distribution slides both.
Sir, I have question. Sir,
Hello? Yes.
please extend the date of submission of assignments.
Okay. Just when you can give.
At least 3 days.
Okay.
No,
Next week
5 days. 5 days we
Next
need.
week.
Okay. Just you inform to program coordinator also, because I have to put the date when I receive it. You get 5 mark on that. So you just inform to him also.
Because it is too much. It is wide.
I understand. So that's why I'm telling you. So you must inform to the program coordinator also, because it carries mark when you submit it. If you submit it at the exact time, you get full mark. So you have to keep program coordinator, just take his permission also. Okay, so tomorrow class will be discussing on a three-phase transformer, all the tutorial question answers. Don't miss out the class for tomorrow evening class. Okay, gentlemen, bye.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Bhaiya.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon.
Okay, bye.